Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is John Kehinde Atoyebi. I'm from Nigeria. I'm a legal practitioner with 10 years standing. The passion to fight for and to work for, to protect human rights of persons motivated me to study law. And I must say it has been an amazing experience for me. But then one of the challenges facing human rights implementation across the world is the issue of racial discrimination. Now I know a lot of us remember the disturbing racial abuse of these three English players at the just concluded Euro 2020 tournament. These players were racially abused by fellow footballers and football fans. And the interesting thing is these guys actually were so bold enough to step forward for their country when it mattered most. And let me tell you a short story. This guy putting on jersey number 25, incidentally, is a Nigerian, born to Nigerian parents. Yeah, such a crazy thing. Yeah, so in 2018, I attended a training on human rights implementation in Switzerland and France. And as a lawyer, I felt more equipped to challenge all forms of human rights abuse globally. I had a very wonderful experience, I must confess. Had lots of excellent academic experiences through hands-on learning, lunchtime topical issues. We also had intellectually satisfying excursions to places like Geneva, Strasbourg, and a host of other institutions, international institutions in the heart of Europe. But then, as beautiful as my experience was, I had two experiences that I can never forget. Yeah. So number one, the first one was after a day's activities, and we decided to have a hangout with ourselves, all the participants, and some of the organizers. Then suddenly we started asking each other if we had been to other countries and if we had been to other continents of the world. Then it was the turn of one of the organizers, who incidentally was a doctoral candidate working on the field of human rights implementation. Nice. I was the one that actually asked her the question. So my question to her was, hey, have you been to Africa? But then her response was dumbfounding. I noticed that she started stuttering, and then she started touching her skin in an irritable manner. Hear her. I have not been to Africa. We hear that wild animals walk on the street of Africa, and that one might be attacked. What? And she gave some smiles to really confirm her ignorance and the fact that she was one of those whose minds have been abused, whose minds have been corrupted, and who have been made to attach barbaric things to people of color, especially the blacks. It was actually more shocking to learn after the program, after that day's activities, that same lady had earlier been reprimanded for suggesting that black participants be put on a separate floor of the housing. Our reason was that other participants might not be comfortable staying with blacks, despite the fact that we had our different rooms. Well, we did lodge a complaint at the end of that day with the school authority, and they did invite us to a meeting officially where they distanced themselves from our views and also tendered apology. Yeah, so number two, let me tell you the second experience. I was at the airport in Zurich to board an early morning flight back to my country, Nigeria, after the program. And obviously, I had to pass the night at the airport. So I decided to sleep on one of the couches with my luggage right beside me. And yeah, so where I was, it was so strategic that when you're coming towards that area, you would meet me before getting to the next passenger. So when others saw that I had gone there to lay my head, a few other passengers also joined me. Then at midnight, I felt someone tap me. And lo and behold, I saw two airport security officers with one other person coming to join them. Well, they demanded to see my luggage, which I obliged, and thereafter, they also asked my travel document, which I also showed them. Then afterwards, while I was expecting them to move to the next person, they turned back and left without checking anyone's papers. What? I was curious. I began to ask myself why I was the only person they had come to meet. But then I quickly remembered that I was the only black guy in that session. Guys, I need to tell you, I felt terribly bad, and I couldn't go back to sleep until the day broke. On the 25th of May, 2020, an all too common occurrence happened, the death of George Floyd at the hands of American police. His death and far too many others are a manifestation of wider problem of racism, police brutality, and inequalities happening globally. Little wonder, on the 1st of June 2020, the whole world rallied against the murder of George Floyd. Heart-rate protesters from all over the world protested against police brutality, inequalities, and all forms of oppression happening around the world, despite the coronavirus measures that were actually in place at that time. Obviously, the pain people felt for the death of George Floyd was greater than their fear of coronavirus, as it was evidenced by heart-rate protesters coming out from all over the world to protest against that heinous murder of that innocent man. But then you may ask, why is the reaction so widespread and fierce this time around? Was it the collective human conscience that is deeply hurt, or was it the deeply rooted value of justice for all sensitivity that triggered these global reactions? Well, I think the question we should ask ourselves is whether these lessons have helped to drive home the changes and lessons that we desire as a society in the nearest future. Well, the death of George Floyd, his murder, is just an outcome of centuries of institutionalized and systemic racism, an outcome of racialized inequality, and an outcome of entrenchment of racial supremacy. If humanity wants to deal with this problem, institutions and nations need to change and revise their policies. And then the social media that has been used to fuel racial supremacy should also be used to kill the monster, where we cannot get over the historical burden of slavery and colonialism, especially for us in Africa and in other places that experienced colonialism. But then the world has changed, and diversity has become a demographic and a political phenomenon that we all need to come to terms with. Without a global revolution in the sphere of human consciousness, we cannot be any better and will not be able to remake our world. There must be a global revolution that is founded on the truth that colonial racism was invented to justify the inferiority and the unfortunate exploitation of the black people and people of other color. Now, I've come to discover that the issue of racism is not really a biological thing per se, as all humans have the same, we all came from the same race. And as such, there is no gene for whiteness or for blackness or for any other color. Now, have you ever asked yourself whether that person you see as being less of a human being, that person you see as being inferior to you, has less of the things that you have in your body? I mean, the answer is obvious. Now, these explicit issues, I believe, can be dealt with by an appropriate policy measures. Institutions need to come up with policies like KDI presently does, and nations need to also come up with national action plans against racial discrimination. I believe that beyond this issue of explicit issues is the more disturbing dimension of racial discrimination that is rooted in people's minds. I know how it feels to be discriminated against, and the experiences won't leave me. But then let me take this time to appreciate the staff and management of KDI School of Public Policy and Management for really promoting equal right and access to all. I think they deserve some commendation. Thank you. Now, beyond these issues of systemic inequalities in society, I believe that we need to focus on human mind if we must remake our world. In the words of former Czech president and social reformer, Václav Havel, he said, and I quote, "The salvation of this humanity lies in nowhere else than in human heart, human modesty, human power to reflect, and in human responsibility." As humans, we need to show one another unconditional love. Now, we need to express this love. We need to walk the talk if we want to have a world that is free from racism, oppression, and discrimination. And if we also want to have a future that will be free from conflict and division that inequalities often generate in society. In the word of John Bewin, a journalist and a documentarian, he said, and I quote, "We cannot have a better world if we have a society that frowns at discrimination, oppression, and abuse of anyone." Now, I want to commend us to practice love by adoption of what I call the neighborhood principle. The neighborhood notion simply means that you see everyone that comes your way as your neighbor. Now, when people come to you, the first thing you remember is they are humans. Human before color. I walk the talk. How do I show love? I show love to people by being friendly with everyone that comes my way, and I also try to offer helping hand whenever the need arises. I see everyone as human, and I also see everyone as equally possessing the things that I possess. Now, we need to daily live in the truth of our shared humanity, the truth that every human is sacred, has dignity, and has a right to well-being in this human experience. If you want to remake a world, show love. Show some love to people. When people come to you, don't see color, see human beings, because we are all humans. Humans before color. If we remake our world individually, we remake the whole world. Thank you very much.